I used to believe that your partner's loyalty was guaranteed, especially after years together. Marisol and I dated for almost 3 years, and we seemed like the perfect couple, always supporting each other. When we first met, she was shy, uncertain about her future, but she found confidence in my unwavering encouragement. I had a stable job in sales, making good money, and I was proud to help her finish college and manage her student loans. She always said she was grateful I was there. I thought our relationship was built on real love. But everything changed the moment I got sick. I still remember the day I was diagnosed with cancer. The doctor's voice sounded calm, but I heard an invisible hammer pounding my chest. I wasn't old, I wasn't in terrible shape, and yet there it was. I thought Marisol would cry and then gather her strength, telling me we'd fight this together. But instead of unwavering support, I noticed a strange distance in her eyes. She told me she was scared, that she never imagined dealing with a sick partner at our age. I asked her to stand by me, hoping she'd be the shoulder I could lean on. At first, she claimed she'd do whatever it took, but her behavior changed. She stopped asking how I was feeling. She spent more time out with her friends. When my treatment plan kicked in and I was too tired to cook or clean, she complained. I saw frustration in her eyes whenever I mentioned my fatigue. I tried explaining that chemotherapy hit me like a truck, but she only expressed regret about how my condition affected our finances. I had to cut back on work, meaning smaller paychecks. She rarely offered to help with medical bills. She simply drifted away. After 3 months of trying to maintain our life, I was physically exhausted and my bank account was slowly bleeding. My doctor advised me to take a long leave from work because my immune system was compromised. I remember sitting Marisol down, explaining that I'd need more emotional support than ever. She looked at me with pity, as though I were already gone. Then she said, "I'm sorry, but this is too big for me." Those words felt like a hammer blow. I begged her to reconsider, but she had already decided. She packed her things and left me behind. I couldn't chase after her. Even if I wanted to, my body wouldn't cooperate. It crushed me to think that she left me because I was sick and couldn't earn like before. I'd helped her through her struggles, always stepping in when she was down, but now she was gone. My parents stepped in to assist with some bills. My siblings helped me by driving me to appointments. I did everything I could to stay afloat. The betrayal hurt more than the cancer itself. I felt disgusted that someone I loved could abandon me at my lowest point. It stung. I tried to distract myself by focusing on recovery. My medical team gave me hope. They said that although my form of cancer was aggressive, it was also treatable. I underwent every recommended therapy, from chemotherapy to specialized drugs. It wasn't easy, but I clung to the possibility of getting my old life back. I daydreamed about returning to work, feeling healthy, and maybe even trying a new relationship someday. I had dark days where I could barely move, but I refused to let despair win. Anger toward Marisol somehow fueled my resolve to survive. I wanted to outlive heartbreak. Over the next year, my body responded well to treatment, and the cancer went into remission. My hair grew back, my appetite returned, and I gradually regained strength. With my doctor's blessing, I started looking for work again. Although my old position wasn't available, a friend recommended me for a role in a smaller company. It didn't pay as much as I used to earn, but it was something. I began to rebuild my life, one piece at a time. I never heard from Marisol during that period, not a single text, call, or email. She was gone for good. Once I felt healthier, I realized I was filled with a quiet rage. I had given Marisol everything I could, but she bolted the second things got tough. The memory of her betrayal lingered in the back of my mind. Instead of letting it corrode me, I directed that fury into self-improvement. I went to the gym, worked on my skills, and learned to invest. My new job was in digital marketing, which opened my eyes to a different career path. I took online courses, devoured books, and hustled on the side. Bit by bit, I completely rebuilt my confidence. 5 years passed in a blur of hard work, hospital checkups, and careful planning. My remission held steady, and life blossomed in ways I never foresaw. I managed to buy a small condo, started consulting freelance, and built up a decent savings. I found a new girlfriend, Serena, but we took things slowly because I still carried emotional scars. She was gentle and kind, and I appreciated her patience. Everything was different from the life I had with Marisol, and that felt comforting. Though I rarely thought about my ex, I sometimes wondered what would happen if we crossed paths. Then, one ordinary afternoon, I walked into a convenience store to grab some snacks on my way home. I strolled toward the counter and nearly froze when I saw the cashier's face. It was Marisol. She looked different, older in a tired way. Her hair was shorter, and she wore a forced smile that vanished the moment she recognized me. My heart pounded, but not from longing. It felt like a well of bitterness had opened inside me. For a second, neither of us spoke. I half expected her to look away, but she just stared, waiting to see my reaction. I tried to appear calm, placing my items on the counter as though I were dealing with any other cashier. She started scanning them, her hands trembling slightly. She said, "Hey," in a quiet voice, like she wasn't sure if she had the right to speak to me. I responded with a neutral nod. Her eyes flickered with what looked like regret, or maybe shame. I noticed a cheap ring on her finger, but she wasn't wearing any other jewelry. I wondered how life had turned out for her since she abandoned me. Part of me felt grim satisfaction inside. She totaled the purchase and gave me the amount. I paid in cash, silently. My mind flashed back to a time when she asked me for money for groceries, claiming she was broke, and I willingly handed her my credit card. The irony was intense. I no longer had any desire to help her. In fact, I felt a surge of pride at how I'd managed without her. I almost wanted to say something biting, like, "You said my illness was too big for you to handle." But I kept quiet. There would be a better time for sweet revenge. As I turned to leave, she whispered my name. A small part of me wanted to ignore her, but curiosity got the better of me. I turned around and met her gaze. She looked like she wanted to apologize, but the words were stuck. Eventually, she muttered, "How have you been?" I didn't bother smiling. I just said, "I'm great," and left it at that. I saw her mouth open and close like she was struggling to find anything else to say. I picked up my bag, walked out the door, and felt a cascade of emotions flood my chest. I went home that day feeling victorious and unsettled at the same time. The shock of seeing her left me rattled, but I also felt a sense of validation. She had a mundane job while I'd reclaimed my life against all odds. It wasn't that being a cashier was shameful, but it was jarring to see her in such a different reality than the one she'd envisioned for herself. I remembered how she used to talk about moving to a big city, landing a high-paying job. She'd always said she deserved the best. Now, she was stuck behind a register. A week later, I decided to return to that store. I told myself I needed a soda, but deep down, I wanted to see if she was still there. Sure enough, she was at the same register, looking more drained than before. When she saw me, her face lit with a mixture of surprise and hesitation. I approached and placed my drink on the counter. She didn't speak until she handed me my change, then quietly asked if we could talk after her shift. Part of me wanted to storm out, but I smiled and said, "Sure." Revenge needed planning. I waited in my car across the lot. When she finally emerged, she looked nervous, like she wasn't sure I'd actually be there. She approached my window, and I stepped out, leaning against the hood. She apologized for everything that happened, saying she made a mistake leaving me. She admitted she'd thought she could do better. Apparently, after she left me, she moved in with some guy who turned out to be a gambler. He drained her savings and left her in debt. She tried to find better work, but without references or experience, she ended up at that register. I listened without a shred of sympathy. Then she said she'd heard I was doing well, that people told her I had a new career. She asked if I could help her out, maybe loan her some money, or put in a good word at my workplace. The audacity of it all was staggering. She deserted me when I was literally fighting for my life. Now she wanted my assistance. I stared at her face and recalled my nights alone, shivering from chemo. I could have unleashed my anger right then, but I decided to play it cool. I wanted more. So I told her I'd think about it. She seized that as a hopeful sign, giving me her phone number scribbled on a piece of paper. She asked me to call or text her anytime. I pocketed it, watching her eyes fill with gratitude. A calmness washed over me. I was in control. She was at my mercy. Part of me wondered if I should just toss the number in the trash and never speak to her again. But something in me wanted closure, and yes, revenge. I assured her I'd be in touch and got back in my car. I spent the next few days contemplating my next move. Serena noticed I was distracted and asked if something was wrong. I didn't mention Marisol at first, just said I was thinking about some career decisions. Finally, guilt weighed on me, and I told her about running into my ex. Serena was surprisingly supportive. She said she trusted me to handle it and that she hoped I could find peace. Her understanding reminded me why I deserved better than Marisol. My desire for revenge burned brighter. I wanted to show my ex that you can't just come back after betrayal. I texted Marisol and offered to meet at a quiet coffee shop. She showed up dressed better than before, maybe trying to impress me. She launched into a sob story about her life after she left me. I pretended to care, nodding and making sympathetic noises. She asked if there was any chance we could reconnect. Then she had the nerve to ask if I'd consider giving her a small loan to help her get back on her feet. I sipped my coffee slowly, letting her squirm. Instead of shutting her down immediately, I told her I'd think it over. She looked thrilled at my hesitation, probably assuming it meant I'd say yes. The truth was, I had no intention of handing her a dime, but I wanted her to hold on to that hope for a bit longer. I wanted her to realize how it felt to be the vulnerable one, uncertain and desperate. I kept my tone polite, asked questions about her situation, and watched her eyes light up whenever I seemed sympathetic. Inside, I felt cold satisfaction. This woman who once discarded me was now clinging to the possibility that I might rescue her. The tables had turned. After that meeting, she texted often. She'd tell me about job interviews that went nowhere, about her mounting bills. She hinted that she was about to be evicted. I responded sporadically, never fully committing to help. Part of me worried I was becoming cruel, but then I remembered the brutal loneliness I felt when she walked out. I pushed those doubts aside. Eventually, I told her I might have a lead on a job. She lit up at the idea. I explained it was a position with a friend's startup, one that offered decent pay and benefits. She practically begged. I arranged for her to meet my friend at a cafe. In truth, there was no friend, no actual job. I asked a former colleague to pose as a recruiter. He owed me a favor, so he agreed. Marisol arrived, and I watched from a distance. My colleague pretended to interview her, making her jump through hoops. She revealed all her desperation, saying she'd do whatever it took to succeed. When he brought up references, her face fell. Then he asked about her personal life. She tried to gloss over her past, presenting herself as someone who'd faced unfortunate circumstances. Afterward, my colleague gave me the details. He said she seemed willing to do anything for a second chance. He also mentioned that she was visibly embarrassed talking about her previous choices. He pretended to be on the fence and told her he'd call her later. When Marisol left, I thanked him and slipped him some cash for his trouble. It wasn't about tormenting her forever, but I wanted her to taste the anxiety she'd caused me. It felt petty, yet strangely liberating. I saw how powerless she really was, and for the first time, I felt genuinely at peace. But I wasn't done yet. I met her and said I decided not to give her the loan. I watched her face crumble. Then I dropped the bomb. I said my friend's startup had chosen someone else for the position. She begged me to reconsider, tears in her eyes. She said she was about to lose her apartment, that she had nowhere else to go. I reminded her how she had left me with nothing when I was at my worst. Her tears kept flowing, but I felt no pity. She made her bed, and now she lay in it. I could see the anger building behind her eyes. She probably expected me to cave in, to be the man she once knew, but I had become someone else, forged by pain and survival. I told her I hoped she learned something from this. She spit out a half-hearted apology, then demanded to know why I was being so cruel. I laughed at the irony. Cruel? She walked out on me when I was at death's door. She only showed up again because she needed something. I told her we were done, and I never wanted to see her face again. When I got home, I felt lighter. Serena noticed my mood and asked if I wanted to talk. I told her I'd finally cut ties with my ex for good. She gave me a concerned look, asking if I was okay. I told her I felt relieved, like I'd settled a debt. We spent the evening cooking dinner together, and for the first time in a while, my mind wasn't swirling with thoughts of revenge. I realized I didn't need to think about Marisol anymore. She was a chapter in my life that I'd chosen to close on my terms. A few months went by, and I heard rumors that Marisol had moved away. I didn't bother verifying. My job was going well. I even got a promotion that allowed me to travel. Serena and I grew closer, taking weekend trips and exploring each other's hobbies. One afternoon, while tidying up a closet, I found an old photo of Marisol and me. back when we thought we were invincible. I stared at it for a moment, then tore it up and tossed the pieces. I didn't feel sadness or regret, just a calm acceptance that I'd completely outgrown that painful chapter. I've come to realize that people who abandon you in your darkest times don't deserve a seat at your table when life improves. I didn't forgive Marisol, and I have no intention to. Forgiveness might be admirable, but some betrayals cut too deeply. I chose to heal without her, and I succeeded. Seeing her again and watching her struggle reminded me that karma can be ruthless. I'm not proud of every action I took, but I won't apologize for protecting myself. If she taught me anything, it's that self-respect is priceless, and that real love doesn't vanish when things get hard. In the end, I survived cancer, rebuilt my career, and found someone who truly cares for me. Marisol became just a footnote in my story, a cautionary tale about shallow loyalty. Sometimes I wonder if she regrets leaving when she did, but those thoughts no longer torment me. I have my health, my dignity, and a future full of possibilities. If I learned anything from that painful chapter, it's to absolutely never doubt my own worth. Life's too short to beg for someone's love, especially when they walked away the moment things got tough. I'll always stand firm in that conviction.